Blitz. I'm Alex Apple. This is a new segment we'll be featuring on the website, joined by Jeremy Clark and Jeremiah Glenn today. Guys, for about 20-30 minutes here, we're going to be talking about TCU. Just wrapped up the Gary Patterson press conference. First things we want to do, what stuck out to you today? Seems like a lot's been said, Jeremiah. That's one of the things you said. You're just ready to play the game. But did Patterson say anything noteworthy today?
No, he's still kind of playing things close to the vest with the Devontae Fields situation. Obviously, he's going to suit out. He's giving more ammo to the guys that still think Fields is going to play, but I'm with you guys. I don't think he's going to get on the field. Could we see a situation where Jeremy Hill runs out there and then all of a sudden here comes Field running onto the field? I don't know. But, he's leaving that open to interpretation right now.
Well, like you mentioned in the press conference, for those guys who have known Gary for a long time, if you're a betting man, would you bet against him playing? And right now, I'm not going to bet that Fields is going to play, even though I'm getting over just so many emails, so many messages on the boards about Fields. There, people hearing that he's going to play. Obviously, the speculation, like Jeremiah mentioned, him suiting up only adds fuel to the fire. But I'm with Jeremiah. I don't think Fields is going to walk out. I think he's going to walk out there, obviously, and be on the field. But I do not think he's going to see action in the game.
And one of the things that confused a lot of people was them putting Devontae Fields or Matt Anderson on the depth chart.
Right.
Stephen Stevenson asked about that today, and Gary said it was done just for that reason, to confuse people. He's playing games with LSU, I'm sure, as well. I think he really respects Les Miles, and he said a couple of times during press conferences, go read what Les Miles says. He's not saying anything about his team either.
Right.
So it's kind of a tit for tat right now, and I think that's what you're seeing between the two coaches.
He just came out and said he doesn't even know if Hill's going to travel with the team. So obviously he knows he's the head coach. This is a cat and mouse game right now.
Miles is playing head games too, because he mentioned in one of his scrimmages that a certain player had the most catches, and the kid himself tweeted that he didn't even play in the scrimmage. So that's what kind of mind games you see here between the two coaches going against each other. And I think it's pretty smart. I mean, but like Gary said again, I keep going back to him mentioning, if you know him, he's sticking to his guns. He says it's a game time decision. We put on the forum that I felt that if Gary said that would mean he was going to play. But at the same time, he says he sticks to his guns, and if you guys know Gary for as long as we have, you believe what he's saying. He's
And one of the
guns.
things that I've heard, I don't know if you guys have heard this as well, is that Devontae Fields was able to wear the jersey at the jersey revealing as kind of a reward for doing what he needed to do. As Gary says, doing the things that you need to do. He's done what the university has asked of him. I think Patterson feels like this is a situation where they've done the right thing by Devontae, but they have to follow through, continue to suspend him for 2 games, stick to their guns, if not to send a message to Devontae, but to the rest of the field that they're not going to back off of these punishments, especially not in a big game situation. I think the other thing that was interesting today at the press conference was Gary continued to, is not going to name the quarterback, despite the prodding, the poking and prodding and circular questions from the media. He said he doesn't even have to tell the team they know. I think I know what that means. What do you guys think that means?
I think it means that Casey's going to come out with the first team. But I also think you could probably see Casey coming out with Boykin in the same formation. I don't necessarily think just because you see Casey or Boykin in a series or in a particular formation that it means the ball's going to go through them. What I mean by that is if Casey's out there, that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to do a trick play if Boykin's out there at the same time. I think Boykin's the type of athlete where he can play multiple positions. Obviously, we know he can run the football. I've heard the guy can catch the football just as well. And if you get a guy with his athleticism out there running routes and catching the ball, getting a quick 10-yard pass down the field, what's that going to do to LSU's mentality on defense? Are they going to run a trick play against us, or is he out there because he's going to catch a football?
Well, let me ask you something. Gary said today that there's certain games in their season that it's going to require a different type of quarterback to win those games. Sometimes you're going to need a more mobile quarterback. Does that mean that there's going to be games where Trayvon Boykin is actually the better suited quarterback and he's out there throwing the 20 passes instead of Paul?
You saw some eyebrows
I'm a little
raised.
suspicious of
You
that.
saw some eyebrows raised when that was brought up. I've never been a fan of the 2-quarterback system, and I don't think this is going to be a true 2-quarterback system, one run a series. I think they're going to use Trayvon where they can, when they can. I think Casey is the guy. I think, he's hinted it around a few times, Patterson has. And I think Casey will be the guy, but Trayvon's going to get on the field. But I don't think this is a true 2-quarterback system. As to what you asked about, will one quarterback fit a certain game plan better than another? Obviously they will, but I just think that he may see a few more snaps in that game than usual. But I still think Casey's the starting quarterback for this team, and I think they're the best they're going to be with Casey as the starting quarterback.
But he also dictated in the conference there, if they're having trouble with the rush and Casey can't get away, you need to put Trayvon in there. And as you mentioned, they're light years beyond what they were last year throwing the football. And not only has Gary said that publicly, but we've also heard it within the program from our sources how much improvement they've seen from Trayvon and Tyler Matthews throwing the football. So I think it will dictate if the offensive line, which Gary says is better than a year ago, if they do struggle against LSU first and they do get pressure Casey and they do get a couple sacks on them, I wouldn't be surprised if you do see Trayvon on a second down play very early in the game.
Also, one thing people forget is Trayvon was really dinged up with his ankle last year at the end of the year. You're going to see a healthy Trayvon this year. That's a whole different animal. Whenever he wasn't able to run the way he wanted to, that really stifled what he was able to do. You give him now a healthy ankle, and he's got a full offseason of improvement. I think you're going to see how valuable he can be to this team.
Let's talk. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we can talk about the quarterbacks Devontae all day long, all the way up until Saturday. But I thought the other impressive thing that I saw on the depth chart that they released yesterday was Jonathan Anderson, that first team linebacker, and we've all been very high on Jonathan, especially since his performance against BYU as a redshirt freshman. But you want to have an athletic 6'3", 225, 230-pound linebacker with his type, exactly with his type of speed. You've got to be excited to see him get that first team nod and hopefully be able to help with the run game. LSU's a run first team. I don't think you're going to see how much Jonathan Anderson helps the defense until they see a Texas Tech covering slots over the middle with his speed. But I thought that was another movement that I thought was kind of surprising.
I think that gives TCU's defense the best potential because you look at what Jonathan Anderson needed to work on. It was playing in the box, proving that he can get off a tackle and come up near the line and get off a block, and proving that he can make a tackle. I think with his speed, especially against LSU, if he can prove that he can get off a block and he can run sideline to sideline, get to the edge where LSU is so quick and they love the stretch plays. They're going to run it and those running backs are so physical. I think he gives them the most potential. I think it's something that if Jonathan Anderson continues to come on, that's another weapon for that defense. And can you imagine if they have a linebacker that runs the 4.4, that's 230 to really help them? They didn't have it last year.
Right.
I thought he said it well today. Kenny Cain was a 5.0 in the 40 last year. Jonathan Anderson's a 4.4.
And again, we got a lot of criticism on this a few weeks ago when he mentioned to us that Kenny Cain was 203 last year. He mentioned it again today. Kenny Cain was 203 pounds last year. Whether he looked 203 pounds to us or not, that's what the head coach is saying.
He also wasn't 6'1" like he was listed.
But just comparing both players, that Jonathan Anderson is a much bigger linebacker right there at that position.
He's a physical freak. There's no doubt about it. And the whole key with him all along was just learning the system. There was no doubt about his athletic ability. He's always been able to run down the ball carrier. He always delivers the big hit. The question was, could he learn the system? It looks like he's done that.
They're going to play a little bit of defensive end by committee in this game. Two who will probably get snaps. John Kuntz was one of the player guests today. He'll get snaps. Matt Anderson will join them. Who else is listed? James McFarland, Josh Caraway.
It's the deepest defensive line that Gary Patterson has ever had.
It's the deepest, but do you worry about these guys being able to keep leverage against these big offensive tackles like Lael Collins that LSU's going to run out there? Do you worry about LSU being able to set the edge on them?
I think this is going to be a surprise of the game here. I actually think Matt Anderson, James McFarland, I think those guys are going to give the bigger offensive linemen from LSU fits with the speed rush. I really do. You saw a little bit of it in the Rose Bowl, but I think these guys are faster than the defensive ends you had in the Rose Bowl. The bigger, slower offensive linemen are going to have a hard time with the speed rush. Obviously, these guys play in the SEC. They see speed rushers every team they play. But I think Matt Anderson's going to surprise some people, and I think James McFarland's ready to take that next step and be one of the next big-time pass rushers.
And what about in the run game, Jeremy? I think that's where the biggest concern is for me.
Well, as Jeremiah was mentioning about the speed rush too, LSU's not really a hurry-up type offense like you see in the Big 12. Cameron's not a guy that is going to just go play after play after play. So you're going to have a chance to get those fresh legs in there, and that's why it's so good that they're so deep along the whole defensive line. But they've always done well against the run. It's never been an issue where TCU can't match up against some of the bigger guys that is thrown at them. Wisconsin was a prime example. Wisconsin had the biggest offensive line they've ever played, probably the biggest offensive line I've ever seen in college football, as far as just the side, the height, and the weight in those guys. But the difference is LSU has a little bit faster receiver set, faster running backs,
Better skill positions.
Exactly.
Without a doubt.
I'm not sold on Mettenberger yet, but I do know that he threw for
he's probably as good as Tolzien.
He is as good as him. But I do think that against the run, they're still going to be successful because they're so fast. And it's been known for as many years as Gary Patterson has been the coach. If If you can outrun on defense, you're not going to play. If you're slow, forget about it. You're not going to play on his defense. They're fast all the way from defensive line all the way to safety. So I think that gives them an edge right there.
Jeremiah, you came out with the keys to the game yesterday. Run us through a little bit of those. Jeremy, also comment on what you think ultimately will be the biggest key for TCU in this game.
My number one key was stop the run, and it sounds so simple. TCU, I said this is strength on strength. LSU runs the ball. They love to pound the ball and pound teams into submission. And then, like Patterson said, they love to throw over their head. The thing is, I think Patterson's D can actually stand up to this, and that's going to be the key of the game. If they can stop the run, obviously Cam Cameron can come up with some interesting pass plays. I'm not as concerned about Mettenberger beating you with the pass consistently. My concern is letting them pound you 4, 5, 6 yards at a time with their running backs. By the fourth quarter, those are 10, 15, 20-yard runs.
Right.
So you've got to hold up at the point of attack. I think stopping the run is absolutely the biggest key to this game.
I think Gary even mentioned one of his
That
keys to
sounded
victory
a lot
this
like
morning.
you this morning.
Yeah, but I think everyone thinks it's going to be a defensive battle, which I do agree, but I think this game will be dictated by how well the offense will go against LSU's defense. They're replacing 8 starters. And we saw last year, it's tough to replace 8 veterans off of defense. That's pretty good. And LSU does reload. They've got great recruiting classes every year. They're top 10. So we
There's
know
a learning curve there.
yeah, exactly. You know they do have the athletes to play. I mean, you look at their cornerbacks, they're 6'1". Jalen Mills is starting corner for them. That was a guy TCU actually recruited, never offered, but he was on their list. But I think the important thing is going to be if Casey comes out, he hasn't shown any rustiness in the practices that we've seen, and everyone we've talked to said he's throwing better than he did a year ago.
That's great.
The game's going to open up for them a little bit more than what we saw last year. There's going to be more vertical routes, more seams down the middle, where we saw Brandon Carter have a big game against Kansas, big game against Virginia. Those type of pass routes weren't there late in the year. They're going to be back with Casey back there throwing the ball. If the offensive line is better and is playing as well as Gary has says they are,
Right.
that's the key. If they can give Casey some protection, allow him to have the ball to his receivers, throw the ball to his receivers, that's what's going to dictate this game for us.
I'll say the key is this. I think, Jeremiah, you're absolutely right. Stopping the run game is key, but I think the first thing that they've got to do is they cannot let big plays come on the outside. The Landry and Odell Beckham, 2 terrific playmakers. That gives Mettenberger confidence. If you can make LSU at least feel like they're one-dimensional to where to get a big play, they've got to run the football. Even if they're having some success at the beginning, I think if you take away the pass first, I think if you make them feel like to move the football, they've got to run. I think then they have less potential for the big play. I think TCU's discipline on defense, they stay in their gaps well. I don't think you're going to see a lot of 20, 30-yard runs here. And Gary Patterson's defense, he said it a million times last year, make the opponent kick field goals. If they kick field goals, I think TCU's got a good chance.
And they've got a freshman kicker in a big game for LSU, so make them kick
And
field
rarely do you see a team, with the exception of maybe Oklahoma State last year,
I was going
put
to say
together
Oklahoma State was the only game that they did force them to field goals and they lost.
put together long offensive drives that end in touchdowns. Eventually, Gary Patterson's defense, if it's shown a propensity to make a play, I think stopping the pass early on is going to be key. Let's move on to the next part of our show, and we'll get into some predictions later. Later this week, actually, a news feature that we'll have coming out. Jeremy's putting together a really nice-looking graph. We're going to do a college pick-em each week, pick about, 10 games?
Yeah, pick about 10 games.
Have a guest picker as well as some other people that you don't always see on our site picking with us. We think it'll be really fun. I'm looking forward to keeping up with the records. I know I'm the early favorite at this point.
I take this as a challenge.
Yeah.
I think I'm the early favorite at this point.
And just so everyone
and
knows,
I think
this
I'll
is
live
a-
up to the hype.
Yeah, so everyone knows, and I'm looking at you, Swin. This isn't a game that's picked by the spread. It's just straight up.
Straight up.
It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't bet against the odds. I always just go out and figure out who I think is going to win. And right now, I have TCU beating LSU.
The only thing I'm disappointed at is Clemson, Georgia is at the same time as the TCU LSU game this weekend. That's going to be a good game. But let's move on. That should be really fun. Let's move on to some questions that we got in the mailbag earlier this week. We were putting
Mailbag's always a fun thing.
Finally,
Yeah.
we'll get to some of your questions. The first thing,
This chair's kind of squeaky, man. I'm going to have people
but
thinking
these are
I'm over
nice
here,
leather chairs. They've really outfitted us with some fine
They're taking good care of us here
tableware
at
here.
TCU.
Jeremy, in this class, do we take an outside receiver? Do they get an outside receiver in this class? If so, how many more skill position slots could they possibly have in this class?
Well, there's a couple of receivers they do like.
And keep in mind they've got 11 receivers, none of which are seniors this year.
Exactly. But and that's another compliment to a guy like Ty Salanina and Cameron Eccles-Luber to come in and get playing time on the 2 deep with that set of receivers they had coming back. So that they've got some skill,
Very
those two
talented,
guys.
yeah.
But I do think there is a chance they do take one receiver out of this class. I'm not going to say his name, but I can guarantee TCU fans know who he is.
Right.
Let's just say there's some second guessing on his decision.
Right.
And I would tell TCU fans to continue to monitor that. He's not going to tell the media anything otherwise, but I would just say continue to monitor that situation.
Jeremiah, how long do you think it will take the offensive line of TCU to really gel this year, to really come together as a cohesive unit? You look at James Dunbar starting at left guard. He's never played there before.
Right.
He's been a tackle his entire career. And then you've got, the veteran Eric Tausch at the other right guard. But it's something that, despite him being a veteran, not been very complimentary of either of those guys so far, at least from Patterson. How long for them to gel?
I think it's going to be baptism by fire, obviously, in this first game.
Whoa.
I do. I'm looking at these guys, the defensive line for LSU, and you'll know a lot more about this TCU offensive line after this first game. Everybody expects to see Tunstall and Knapp and those guys named in the guard slots, and to be honest, they still might by the end of the year, and I think they're going to be rotating. I think they will have a true two deep at every position. I think that's a good positive. But right now, Dunbar is a big question mark to me because I like him as a tackle. I've never seen him in a game as a guard, so I don't know how he's going to stand up to a big interior lineman that can bull rush him and things like that. He's always very athletic. He's got quick feet. Does he have enough weight in the trunk to hold his ground against some of those bigger tackles?
But he is a big guy, and that's what you're going to see moving forward with recruiting. They're going to recruit tackles that can slide down into guards. But moving on, another question that we received, and I'm going to ask both of you guys, how many fake punts do we see LSU try to
I think
run
you
this
at
week?
least see one, and
I'm hoping to see in person the fake field goal where he throws it over his head. That would be
That's a
something I'd like to see.
possibility.
Well, they don't have that punter anymore, the guy that had
No, the
women loving
all-world
him.
Australian,
Yeah.
Brad Wing was his
Yeah,
name.
yeah, the guy
Right.
that can go into any frat party and just
I-
steal everyone's girlfriend.
I think they will pull a trick play, and I think TCU's got to be ready for it. Got to be so disciplined. When you play LSU, every possibility you have to be thinking about in
It's
every
all
play.
on the table.
If they want to run a reverse pass, they'll run it. And Les Miles, if you went under a bridge, you get hit in the head with a bag of gold. That's what it seems like his whole career has been based on. I think you're definitely going to see it. Now from TCU, I don't think we'll see a trick play. I think TCU'd like to just line up and beat him. But that's something that they've got to keep their eye on. I guess when it comes to trick plays, TCU is so caught up in maintaining their responsibility on whatever they're running, especially on defense, a defense that's so play-oriented and system-oriented, not just, where you go out there and defend a spot. I think that's what's hurt them in the past. I'm betting on seeing it.
Yeah, and another thing I've been asked is, do we anticipate to see TCU open up things, not only offensively, but defensively as well? I mean, they've got a long schedule. Like Gary said, this one game's not going to dictate the whole season. They still got 11 more of these things to do.
But I don't think you can hold back anything for that reason. And here's my thing. Coach Patterson's notorious for win by 1 point. And I hate to say this, I think that can get you in trouble in a game like this. I think you have to put it on the table. I think you have to open up your playbook and you have to attack LSU. If you sit back and wait for them to do something, you play reactionary, that's not good for TCU. I think they need to try to jump out early and then play from ahead. And I think being aggressive is going to be an important key.
I think the 1 point mentality last year was the Texas game. I mean, because that was about as
Right.
vanilla as
They
you can
could
get.
have scored more
Yeah.
points, but they wanted to hold on. But what worries me in a situation like that is it takes one mistake to blow that out of the water.
And
So-
in case McCoy was leading the charge, and luckily, in the end, they were able to stop it. But I mean, that was last year.
Next question. What's up with Jimmy Swain? His tweets have been a source of angst in Frogland lately. Jeremy,
Yeah.
what do you tell us about that?
I think Jimmy's fine. I think there was a little bit of emotions there with him, maybe not talking with his mom, or his mom not being 100% certain on, where his college decision was. TCU, from what I was told, did talk to Jimmy about it, and everything seems to be fine and dandy now. He's actually planning on getting down here this weekend for the LSU game, so I think that's big news. Just got to get Mama down here. I mean, Mom's going to be away from her son. It's not real far from Missouri or Olathe, Kansas, where he's at now, but Mom's got to get on campus, and Jimmy's a top linebacker in the country. He's still going to get recruited pretty heavily. I mean, very heavily. I mean, the very next day he committed to TCU, he tweeted a picture out that had about 50 envelopes from Arkansas. So he's going to continue to get heavily recruited.
Jeremiah, the next thing Of the 2014 kids that are currently committed, which of those guys do you feel like has the best opportunity to step in and make an impact as a freshman?
Man, you hit me with the one I wasn't ready for. Hadn't really thought
I mean,
about
we thought
that.
open to you.
Yeah.
2014, I mean, I was gonna ask Gary that today, and I completely had, just was in awe of asking questions.
My
I guess.
concern is that you played so many young guys in the last class, and you're going to actually probably play 6 or 8 more here. It's going to still be a relatively young team going in next year. I don't see a lot of these guys stepping in and playing right away. Foster won't.
There's not that many
The
spots.
quarterbacks are
either.
in a red shirt, in my
Right,
opinion.
right.
You've got your offensive lineman, unless one of the, obviously this is going to be an unbelievable offensive line haul. But one of those guys come in and beat out some more experienced guys, it's going to take a lot. A guy like Ty Barrett maybe. He's big enough to slide inside and play guard like we talked about. He might be a guy that can come in and contribute at the guard spot from day one.
It seems like it's going to be a largely class that contributes their freshman season on special teams, not so much in the starting position.
Well, we're seeing a trend here. Obviously the team was young when the 13th or 12th class came in, but I didn't anticipate 6 guys to be in the 2 deep from the 13th class.
No, that's true.
And you also got 2 or 3 guys that were right there, just one player away from a player possibly getting injured or actually beating them out. So I think if you look at the 2014 class with 10 commitments, a guy like Frank Key is a guy who has junior college experience that I think can come in, be a big guard like you mentioned. James Dunbar, you don't know if he's going to be. I think Frank Key can be that guy, big inside. Darrell Owen is another guy I really like with depth at defensive end. I think he has a chance to play, but if not, he's very athletic. He's kind of like a Stanley Mponga was when he was coming out of Hebron a few years ago. But those 2 guys, and Nick Orr. Nick Orr is another guy that's very smart. Free safety. They're going to lose Olabo this year. They've got Jeff Hooker as the backup right now. They've got Steve Wesley that's playing some free safety now, who had never played free safety before getting to TCU. So Nick Orr coming in playing free safety, I think would have a chance to play.
I think Gore is a really nice player. The way he runs, his body, it seems like he can add weights, add some physicality pretty easily. I like Nick Gore. He's a guy that often I feel like has gotten overlooked a little bit.
If you watch his
but
film,
there's
it jumps off
a
the film.
niche there for someone to step up in that free safety position.
Yeah.
I think that's one position where, I couldn't even tell you who would be the favorite to start there next year.
I'll say this. It would not shock me in the least, and you guys probably feel the same way, but if they do well on offense this year, and you see a guy like Tyson Lenina probably touch the ball 1 or 2 times, Gary's going to be foaming at the mouth to get him on defense, to play free safety, because as he's mentioned, he's very smart as a football player. He's 6 foot, 195 pounds. He's blazing fast. I can't believe he's on offense to begin with. I don't know what they
How that got away from Gary.
I don't know what they put in Gary's drink that night when they decided that, but I can see something like that happening later on through Ty's career if offense doesn't work out for him.
Guys, we got about 5 minutes left. Last thing I want to touch on, what excites you most about this season for TCU? Above all else, what is it that's got you fired up for this year?
I think if you look at last year when they lost what they lost, they still battled. They were in every game. Some of the games against the toughest opponents were very close games. The only one I felt they got handled in, and even that's a little misleading, was Oklahoma State. I think this year they win some of those closer games because of the experience and the depth on the team. I think the most exciting thing for TCU right now is all these young guys have had a year to grow up, and I think you're going to see a completely different team this year.
I'm excited because it's their second year in the Big 12. They're still an extremely young team. A lot of people are already giving them that nod to either win the championship or finish no worse than third. You got to think of next year what the talent's going to be like. These guys that were freshmen last year are going to be juniors. The sophomores are going to be seniors. So the experience is going to be really through the roof next year. You're not going to have Casey back, but you're still going to have a quarterback that's very good in Boykin. You're still going to have a guy that's on the rise in Tyler Matthews. You're still going to have some running backs in B.J. Catalan, Aaron Green. The experience level is awesome if you just look to the future. And I'm excited for recruiting their classes. Right now they've got four-star commitments to it, and I think they're in very good shape for a
Their
guy like
average
Braden
star
Smith.
ranking of 3.4 is first in the Big 12 right now. And
Right.
I know people get caught up in the points and the total rank because they're 37th in the country by our rankings right now. But if you look at the 3.4 ranking, that's number 1 in the Big 12. It's like number 13 or 14 in the country.
It's
So
really,
that tells you the quality of recruits.
it's really strong, and they're not going to take a huge class. They're not going to have a Texas Tech-like class where you've got it filled up with 3 and 2 stars,
Right.
and you've got 28
Don't talk
commitments.
bad about Texas Tech, though.
Well,
Don't do it. I'm just telling you.
You know, I can tell Jeremy's really feeling the bro swag movement. I can tell a change in him since Kingsbury got hired.
Yeah, where's my Ray-Ban? No, but that's another thing we didn't really mention on is the recruits that are coming in, even this weekend to the LSU TCU
Right.
game. You've got Braden Smith coming in. You've got Miles Garrett that's going to be there. You've got Dalen Mack, the number 3 prospect in the entire nation for the 2015 class. So you've got 3 players right there that are in the top 10 at their respective positions in the nation going to be at this game. Not to mention the 20 or 30 other ones that are going to be 3 or 4-star kids, possibly 5-star kids.
Right.
That TCU probably wouldn't even have the chance to get on their field or Cowboy Stadium 5-6 years ago. That's how much this has changed in the 9-8 years we've been doing this. The level of recruits they're getting in every year just seems to be on the rise, and that's why I think we're seeing the trend with the true freshmen that are coming in and making an impact.
That's what excites me. I think you hit on it. Over the last 6 to 7 years, the incredible speed with which TCU has grown as a program. If the Rose Bowl announced that TCU was for real, coming into the Big 12, announced that they were here to stay, I think this is a year playing LSU, playing Texas at home, having a chance to compete for the Big 12 against Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. Those will be big games. I think this is the year where TCU gets in people's minds and gets there to stay. I think if they have a good season and they play on that national, the national stage 3-4 times and can get to a big bowl game, I think it's a huge year for the program, and I think it's a year where they're set up for success. And I think even looking forward, like you mentioned, a year ago, I might have looked at when Paul was going to graduate and said, well, who's going to be the quarterback after that? There's going to be a little bit of a step back. But with Tyler Matthews, Trayvon Boykin, and then the depth behind them,
Zach Allen and
where are all these guys going to play? There's only 4. These guys have got 4 years, and then they've got 5 quarterbacks. I think that's what excites me. I think it's a huge year for TCU nationally. I think they're going to do really, really big things, especially if they get off to a good start and can beat LSU, can beat Texas Tech. I think these games at the end of the year are going to be awfully exciting. Amon G. Carter will be filled, and there will be a lot of national TV games for TCU if they're in contention for a BCS Bowl or to win the Big 12.
I got one last question for both of you guys, and I want one-word answers. First thoughts on the uniform.
Dumb live.
Great.
Wait, what'd you say?
Dumb live.
Okay, dumb live.
Yes, that's 2 words.
Translate that to the people who don't know what that
recruits
means.
love them. I mean, that's what it's all about. And they've got, what was it? Icy was the other word. So that's the guy.
You're stealing from Ty Barrett now.
I am, but I've heard that before from other recruits as well. The recruits love them. They're icy. They look good. They're, it's the swag. I guess swag isn't the word this year, but they're icy. I mean, they're good looking uniforms, and all the recruits love them. So.
Now I'll go with swag. I think what you see in the helmets, and you see, how many? TCU's got as many helmets as Oregon. I feel like,
The Oregon of the South.
That's what you want to see. How can I see the uniforms? I asked Gary the other day, what is that, like the 3rd question you get when you come in? And he said, yeah, at least. I bring them back to my office and they walk past the uniforms that are in the plastic suits, kind of showing off their different combinations. I think Mark Cohen tweeted out they've got 48 different combinations. But I like it. I think the helmet is cool. I like the TCU on the back. I know some old school people, are going to be skeptical of not having it on the sides.
When you see it in person,
but I
it
think
looks
it's pretty
really
neat.
good.
Yeah, especially up close. Now, some of the stuff you won't even be able to see. Some of
Right.
it's curious, like the nameplate being purple on the black.
Right.
You won't see it, or the designs in the shoulders, which is like a
Right.
more metallic black.
Right.
I think it's pretty cool up close. We'll see how it looks on TV, though. That'll be interesting, because if you can't see the names, that's frustrating. But I really liked it.
You see the numbers fine. That's all that really matters. My reaction was incredible. I love the helmets. I like the red stripe. Thought about getting them myself for the big game
I
this
don't know if you
weekend.
noticed, but the red stripe lines up with the player's eye and
Yeah,
shoots directly back. So that's a pretty neat little trick they did.
I think they do a great job of anyone. As you mentioned, it's about the recruits. Gary mentioned 16, 22-year-olds. That's who's got to impress.
Right.
Obviously, you want to keep the alums happy, but I think some of even the old-fashioned alums kind of got the uniqueness of the uniform,
Right.
because there's not any other uniform out there that's like that.
You threw out your prediction. You predicted a TCU win.
I did.
Do we want to put our predictions out here right now for everybody to see?
Sure. You don't have to put a score if you don't.
I'll let you start.
I've got my score. I'm ready to go. I've gone back and forth on this. I've back and forth to LSU winning, TCU winning. I actually think TCU takes this game, and I actually don't think it's going to be a 1 or 3 point win. I got TCU winning 27-16, and I think they're going to shock LSU with what they bring to the table.
That's a lot better than your 52-6 prediction a couple days ago.
Jeremy?
I think TCU's going to win. I think it's going to be a defensive battle, but I think offensively they're going to move the ball as well as they need to. I don't think it's going to be an 11-point spread like you mentioned, but I think it could be like a 21-17 type game.
You know, I'm going to sound like the naysayer again. I think LSU's going to win. I think they're going to win because of the physicality of their backs, the physicality of their offensive line. I think if TCU had come in with Devontae and with some linebackers that had experience, I mean, I don't care if, Marcus Mallett and Jonathan Anderson better be ready to play a heck of a game.
Right.
Because some of the power runs that LSU runs, they're pulling guards, the fullback is elite. They've got great blocking tight ends. I think that's very tough for TCU. I think it's going to be really close. I don't think LSU can go out and blow out TCU. I don't think that Mettenberger's not going to come out and sling it. I think in the passing game, TCU's got an advantage. In the run game, I see LSU with an advantage. And I ultimately think it's going to be hard for TCU to get this game to play to their identity. What makes TCU really good? TCU's really good when they can get the other team off the field and get the game moving a little bit quicker. I think this is going to be a more grinded out LSU kind of game. I think that TCU is going to have a hard time getting it up to their speed and playing at the tempo that they would like to. I think LSU's running game, the power running game, is ultimately what's going to decide the game. I think it's going to be very close, but I'm going to give LSU the nod. But it's hard to pick. I honestly don't know who's going to win the football game. And it's rare that I don't have a feeling strongly one way or the other. It's going to be a really close game, but right now I'm going to give the edge to LSU.
Well, you've heard it here, guys. I mean, it's going to be, with our predictions now, the game's going to be like 45 to 45, or 45, 42, something crazy like that. The game's going to surprise everyone just to throw our predictions totally off. Hey, I do remember you predicted San Diego State beating TCU.
Blow them out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We both predicted that,
Yeah.
and that's when they turned the season around.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one more stat I want to throw out there. LSU comes into this game with the nation's longest non-conference winning streak of 41 games. So that's pretty impressive. Now, they don't load up their non-conference schedule usually because of their SEC schedule, but 41 in a row, I think this is where TCU breaks that.
It's pretty impressive. TCU, when they have outrushed their opponent, has not lost in how many games? This was a stat that I tweeted out a few weeks ago. The running game is going to be huge. I think that's what it comes down to for me. But I think it is, so close. I would say a 3 to 5 point game.
Either direction.
What did you predict the spread to be? What was your points?
21-17. Just so I could piss off the line spread guys or whatever the heck they do. The Vegas 4.5. I mean, if you're betting Vegas 21-17, if it's 4.5, I guess you would win some if you're betting on TCU.
Yeah, I'm the lone guy that went a double-digit win, and I went back and forth on this, but I really do think that TCU's gonna shock LSU.
Although I will say, if the game gets into the 30-point range, if TCU's able to score that much, I don't see LSU scoring that much. If TCU can move it on this defense and put it in the end zone, I really think that's when but that probably means the game is being played faster. We'll see.
Speaking of, since Jeremiah's predictions came out, he's going to be the guy that gets all the 5-star votes from now on. And Alex, you're back to 1-star status, baby.
That's right.
That was my secret for doing that. I'm tired of the 1-star.
Hey, go Vols! They play Austin Peay this weekend.
Oh, you're losing them.
Against my dad's alma mater. He holds the
Austin
NCAA
Peay.
record.
I hear the
for
1-star
longest kickoff
votes right
return.
now.
Anyway,
They're clicking on it right now.
Yeah,
Austin Peay has a football team?
they do.
Okay,
My dad transferred to MTSU after Wilmington.
gotcha.
That's where he made his real hay. But guys, that's all we've got. We hope you enjoyed the video. Stay with Horned Frog Blitz. We'll have lots more features coming up. Check out our picks later this week. Those should be interesting. I have a feeling that these guys are going to be a little bit off. If you're betting, go ahead and go with my picks. But for Jeremiah, I almost did it. I almost did the Jeremiah Clark and Jeremy Glenn. For Jeremy Clark and Jeremiah Glenn, thanks for watching. This is Horned Frog Blitz.